In this video tutorial, I'm going to show how we can use PowerShell to configure the default level for the diagnostic logging for SharePoint 2013. So if you want to go and set the default logging level using the web interface right now, you need to go in Central Admin. Under Monitoring, you will have Configure Diagnostic Logging. Click on that. And then you will be given the various categories of events you can log information for. By default, the event level is set to information and the trace level is set to medium. PowerShell gives us a connectlet that comes with SharePoint that's set SP log level. However, using this connectlet will set the different, either the event level or the trace level across the entire farm. So if I go in and add my PS napkins for SharePoint, add this in, then I'm going to go and call the set SP log level with the event severity parameter, and I'm going to set this to error. So this is going to go and set the event level for every single category in there to error. So let's just prove that it worked. I go back in here. We see that everything is bold, meaning that it's not set to the default setting. And then I see that it got changed to error. Okay. So now what we want to do, we're going to develop a script that's going to do two things, right? Because, for example, let's say you have an error that's happening in production. You want to set all the logging levels to be verbose, for example. So to capture the most information you can and the least information to report a critical event, we're going to set to verbose as well. But before I do that, I mean, you may have kind of define a template for what level of events you want to capture. For example, it might be a good practice in your organization to set the user profile service to capture everything that's verbose, but the rest of it to be error. And you want to be able to go back to that setting once you've changed everything to a certain level, right? So let me explain this. So your environment is working well. Everything's set to the default information with the exception of this guy here that's set to verbose. Then suddenly something just like a problem just starts happening in your environment. You want to set every single category to verbose for maybe 2 hours. Just capture as much information as you can about the error. And then you want to go back and reset whatever was there before. You don't want to just go back to the default setting, which is information and medium, right? Because you have something that says one of the connectlet you have is clear SP log level, right? So if I go back in here and call this here, what this is going to do is reset everything back to the default level, right? But now I lose my SharePoint server user profile service, right? So this is back to normal. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a script that's going to do two things. The script is going to have a method that will go in, that will get information about the current settings for the diagnostic logging, save all the settings that we have to a local file. Then we're going to set the default level of the farm to be verbose, and then we're going to restore whatever was there before. So the method to save the current logging, what we're going to do is we're going to declare an empty variable called content. And then we're going to call this guy here, the get SP log level. So if I just go in here and call this method, this is going to return me every single category of event I have in my farm and their default trace severity and event severity. So what I want to do is save this. So we should see in here somewhere, well, actually I didn't set it, but if my user profile was set to verbose, should be in there somewhere. So under SharePoint portal server, and there you have it. User profile should be set there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that variable here that contains an array of various settings. We're going to loop through every single entry in that variable, and then we're going to create a text. Well, actually, we're going to reuse this empty string variable here, and we're going to put information about the area. So when you go back to Central Admin, an area is the main categories you have in here. So for example, access services 2010, those are the categories. It's going to put information, and everything's going to be separated by a pipe character. It's going to put the name of the setting, its associated trace severity, and its associated event severity. And then I'm going to add a new line just to put everything nicely in my text file. Then this piece here is only going to validate to make sure that the path where I'm saving the text file, and by the way, my function here is going to be receiving the location of that text file. If the path doesn't exist, then it's going to create the file of that location, and then I'm going to be storing the content. So that variable that I declared here that contains the information about all settings, I'm going to store that in my text file. So in order for me to call this method, I'm going to call the save current logging setting method, so the name of the function here, and pass it a path to a local file. So in my case, ctemp.nic.txt. So what this is going to do is just going to go through my method here and save my file locally. So to test that, I'm just going to remove this here, save that. I'm going to browse to my script, and you can see that I'm actually using Notepad to write most of my scripts, but best practice would be to use the Windows PowerShell ISC. It's just, I love to make things complicated. I love the challenge. So I'm using Notepad, and then see these scripts. Perfect, and then that would be save log level. Let me just validate. Yes, perfect. So, perfect. So now my file should be saved under ctemp.nic. So there it is. I'll open it up, and you can see that I have every single log entry in there. So access services, which is the area, the actual entry, which would be the administration. It's trace severity. Let me just look at my script. I believe trace was first. Yeah, so the trace severity and then the error severity. So I have information about all the various entries in there. Now let's take a look at the restore method. The restore method is going to get the content of the file. So there's a commandlet in PowerShell that's called get content. You just pass it the path to a file. It's going to read everything in that file and store the content in a variable, in my case called content. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to take this blob of text. So everything in that file there is just going to be one big blob stored in my variable. I'm going to be splitting this variable based on the new line. So every line will be an entry in an array. So the array is going to be called line. It's going to have a few dozen lines in there. So a few dozen cells, if you like. So entries in the array. And I'm going to loop through all of these lines of text. If the line's not null, because you need to make sure that at the very end of my text file, so this is gotcha, because I'm appending a new line character at the end of every single line, I'll have an empty line right here. So I just need to make sure that it's not in there. I only worry about lines that contain something. So in the line, I'm then going to split it into another array based on where the pipeline character is. So basically what this is going to create is it's going to go in, create an array that every cell of that array contains one line. And then I'm going to declare another variable that's going to have 4 cells, so 4 entries per array. That's going to be for cell 1, cell 2, and whatever. So I'm splitting on the pipe character. So back to our script. Next thing I do is I'm actually going to write on the PowerShell console saying that we're currently processing segment 1, which would be the name of the setting. Then segment 2 would be the trace and the event. So I'm saying we're currently setting the trace level to I for the access services and setting its event severity to to errors, right? So the next thing we're going to do is call the set sp log level commandlet. But remember, if we just put this here, only specifying the event severity and the trace severity or any combination, because we're not specifying to what entry, really, to what category we want to set the properties for, we're going to go and affect the entire file. So what we're going to end up doing here is loop through all the lines and set the log across the board. So really, in the end, all that's going to happen is we're going to get stuck with whatever the last entry is here, medium information, that's going to be set across the board for all entries. What we need to do to make sure that we're only affecting one entry is add the identity parameter. And really what the identity parameter is going to give us is the ability to specify the area name and then the category. So for example, if we want to go in and affect this one here, so I went in backend and then modified it, but I want to say just change the access services administration error medium. What I'll need to do is go in here, go access services column, and then administration. All right, so this is how I would do it. For us, what we want to do is go something like segment 1. Actually, we're going to go here. So we're going to do segment and then 1. So 0, sorry. So for the area name. And you got to remember in .NET, the first cell of an array is always referenced by ID 0. So for example, this is 0, this is 1, 2, and 3. So segment 0, column, and then segment 1. I'm gonna close that here and remove that. I'm gonna save that, and I have a typo here. Good thing I catched it before running the script. I'm gonna go in there, and I'm just gonna go and run the script. So it's currently doing. If we go back and take a look at the script, so it's saving the text file. That's good. It's going to set the log level for every single entry in my farm to be error. So if I look at it now, everything's set to error. Then, let me open it up there. It's going to prompt me to enter a key. So this is just a safe-proof mechanism for me to be able to demo that tutorial. So basically, I'm waiting for the user to enter a key before restoring the log levels. So enter that, and then it's going to go through every single line of it and just put back whatever was there before. So we remember that we had the administration for access services was set to medium error. The rest was all medium information. So it's just looping through them all and setting them back. So if we take a look at it while it's going, we see that it already cleared these. Access services 2010 should almost be done. Once it's done, everything's going to go back to being just regular font, business connectivity services, and so on. So this is an easy way for you to save whatever's there, make like a mass change to the level of logging you want to have across your farm, and then just go back to it whenever you figure out what your problem was or you've captured enough information. So hopefully this was very useful to you guys. It's definitely something to keep in your back pocket. Just remember to make sure that whenever you use the set SP log level commandlet from SharePoint, you always specify the identity of the level you want to set. Otherwise, you're just going to affect everything. And once you do, there's no way for you to figure out what the settings were before that, unless you go and play with your backups. So until next time.